People, Deluded, I'm back again. With it being the international break, I thought I'd just do a little quick video on Arsenal's summer recruits and how I think they've done, or based on what I've seen at under 18s and 23s level, my own personal opinions of them. I'm going to start with George Lewis. Now, the only bad thing I've got to say about that 20-year-old Norwegian lad, slash I believe he's of Rwandan heritage, his injuries disrupted him before the international break, and I think he's missed a couple of weeks. I was pleasantly surprised by him purely because I don't know nothing about him. I see 20-year-old, I see under 23s. I think you've got to hit the ground running, especially in the position you play. His best game probably against Ipswich. I think I've been impressed with him. You know, I like him. He's good 1v1 on the flanks. He can pass. He knows when to try to take someone down the flank. Very confident, relatively strong, very tenacious, and at 20 years of age I think he's been a good addition for our 23s and for Steve Bold to utilise after seeing a number of players that would have probably made up the bulk of his team go out on loan. Obviously Tyrese John Jules, Matt Smith, Ben Shave potentially would have been part of this as well. Obviously Zach Medley would have been there at centre half, Swanson as well, consistent member. The bowlers, the Ballards, the McGuinnesses, you know, there's a long list of you lot can see for yourselves who's gone out on loan. So he's obviously lost a lot of players, but I think George Lewis has done all he can to at least show he can be a competent option. At 20 years of age, I don't want to say time is running out, but he's got to produce the goods sooner rather than later. Remains to be seen whether he'll get an opportunity at Arsenal, but the best thing he's got to do is come in at Arsenal, you know, learn what you need to learn tactically, get as best as, you know, tactically for the men's game, technically do what you can, work with some of these world-class coaches and put yourself in a good position, whether that's to leave permanently, where the club make a profit, force your way into cup competitions, you know, with the Europa League, if we qualify early, there could be thingies, or leave permanently. I do think next season he should be looking to play men's football somewhere. I don't want to be 21 playing under 23s football. The maths doesn't sound good there, does it, people? But I've been impressed with what I've seen with him. He's given us a good dimension. He's one of these, especially as an Arsenal fan, very rarely do you get players that, I wouldn't say it's rare that you get players that want to take people on, but I mean like real 1v1 specialists. Our players are more the technical base, want to come short and stuff. He's on the speed demon thing more time. He just wants to take his fullback on, ruin him, and I really like that. SALAH-EDDINE, I've been very impressed. He's very much a player Arsenal look for, really. You know, technically he's got a good passing range, can play in tight spaces. You know, a bit of physical development to be done if he's going to play to a higher standard or to a higher level. Does appear a bit introverted, you know, still probably getting to grips with his new teammates. I think because he's got that ability, I want to see him be a bit more demanding of the ball and of his teammates. Does seem a bit introverted, like I said, but he's been a solid addition, and I think he's had a couple of niggles and knocks and not been able to feature frequently in recent weeks as a result of that. But I've been impressed with him. Can never pronounce his name, but Adelo, you know, the guy we signed from Ajax, who was previously at Feyenoord, or was he at Feyenoord and then Ajax? Apparently Southampton and Watford wanted him, and we won the signature. He got a good assist in his last game for, who did he get an assist for? Muller, when we won 6-0, when he came off the bench to assist Muller in the 6-0 against Blackburn. Haven't seen, out of all the names, haven't seen too much of him really and truly for whatever reason. But what I have seen, he looks like he's good 1v1. He looks relatively quick, and he looks like he can play with his head up and pick out a pass. Want to see a bit more of him. I know he's had injuries, and I heard rumours of international clearance and red tape around his signing sort of thing before he could really get going. I can't verify that, but I haven't seen too much of him. But from what I have seen, there is a technical level there, but I haven't seen enough to really give the most glowing of reports about him, people. I can never pronounce his name, but you've got Desai, cannot say his name, forgive me. Admittedly, I should have looked at it. I always get his name mixed up with someone who went to my secondary school. But I like what I've seen. Admittedly, it's going to be tough for him to make it as a centre-half, really and truly. Does have some errors in his game, but I like him. He's positive. He sticks to his task well. He's relatively composed on the ball. I wouldn't, based on what I've seen, he doesn't look the tallest of centre-halves, but he's fairly all right in the air. Been a calm addition, considering, you know, we've seen a whole host of centre-halves leave this club on a temporary basis. You know, as I said at the start, McGuinness, Ballard, Medley, Clark, you know, he's lost about 4 or 5 centre, Swanson, about 4 or 5 options at centre half bold. So he's done all he can to provide an option, and you know, we might suffer the short term, but I think the opportunities that could be given to a Tyler Ferran, who was on the bench and had to go and go against Man City's 23s, Monlouise, who played yesterday against Crawley Town for our technically under 21 side. You know, you've obviously got Zach Awe, who started against Blackburn. So there's opportunities for younger players, which I'm happy about. But he's provided a competent option, people. I've been really impressed with Akinola, you know, the 19-year-old. I know he's been at Lincoln. I know he's been at Huddersfield. I'm not going to go as far as to say he's going to make it for definite and all of these things, but I do think, you know, he could have a chance making it here. Again, everything can change, dynamics can change, new signings change everything. But obviously, when you're an Arsenal man, you know, if you're a creative midfielder, sometimes even a striker or a winger, because of how we play, our byproduct is you're going to have more opportunities. Like the defenders that have made it at our club in recent years, it's been by mistake, you know. Bellerin came as a wing. Well, he was a winger at Barcelona. He was converted into a right back. Kieran Gibbs played fullback as well as a couple of positions at youth level. Maitland-Niles could play right back, and I saw him do it against Stoke at the Emirates when he was in the academy. But 9 times out of 10, it's midfield or the flanks or buzzing around everywhere sort of thing. So our defenders breaking through have been accidental sort of thing, or the less glamorous players are sort of the ones that aren't going to make it. You know, you look at Matt Smith, you look at Ben Koch, you look at Miguel Aziz. You know, these midfielders can do the dark arts, but when you think of them, you think of, definitely for all three, what do you think of? Passing range. You don't think of breaking down play necessarily. To be fair, Matt Smith does a lot of that, but you don't think of that. I think Akinola is a bit different, and I think when you look at players, you know, one thing that could help him is when you look at players that will probably get more opportunities than him, probably got higher ceilings and probably held in higher regards, they're all of the similar sort of thingy. Playing style and midfield specialist sort of thing, where him, you know, he's a bit of a different one. He's a bit like, Coughlin isn't the best word, but he's a bit like Coughlin, or he's the most, I'm not saying he's like Partey at all, but he's the most probably aligned to Partey. So if Partey weren't there, there's an option that could be thrown in. I like him a lot. He's got an okay passing range, not the best, but he can pass the ball forward. He's comfortable in possession. His positioning is good. He'll protect the defence like his life depends on it. You know, he defends our defence, and he defends for his team like his family's life is on the line, people. I really like him. From what I hear, he trains the way he plays. He's been very consistent against Blackburn. You know, he was very good against them. He was very good against Liverpool. I really like him, man. And if we're looking for someone a bit different, a ball winner, or someone that could plug a gap in the side, I think the 19-year-old could get opportunities. Now, again, all he's got to do is keep playing to this standard and put yourself in the shop window, either for Arteta or elsewhere. You know, it could happen. And like I said, it's difficult being a midfielder at Arsenal, or central midfielder, because there's a bag of them in the first team level. There's a bag of them coming through. We're still talking about bringing in a midfielder. But one saving grace could be what he brings to the table in midfield. He's a bit different than the other midfielders. And I'm not trying to say sell him short technically. He can pass the ball. But when I think of his strengths, he's more of a ball winner. He's more of a protector than the breaking the lines, dictating possession sort of thing. And I've been really impressed with him. And I think it's been a good recruitment summer for us. And in relation to Mola, the striker, you know, big frame. That's one thing that strikes out about him. Big frame. I like him. Still a bit more, I'd say, he needs to get used to his teammates. I'm still looking at him, I feel there's more of his personality on the football field to show. But I like him, man. He's got a good partnership going on so far with Balogun. You know, he can play he's a bit different to the other strikers in Balogun, John Jules and Eddie. He's a bit of a throwback. He can link up play. You know, he can be a bit more clinical, but he's shown me he can score goals. He can link up play. He can play with his back to goal. You know, he scored some important goals. He's bagged against City. He scored against Blackburn. You know, I really like what I've seen from him. He scored a convincing penalty in the shootout against Gillingham for the under-21 side. I like what I've seen from him, and I think all of these additions have been good, man. And I think, you know, the first priority is players for the first team, you know. Ideally, a couple of them progress to the first team. You know, we know it's difficult, but that's what any academy is. Second of all, clearly they're all brought in to help us at 23s level, because we have a depleted side. Man have gone out on loan and things like that. So if they can help, if they can progress to the first team in the long term, medium to long term, that's great. In the short term, if they can help us have more of a competitive side at 23s level, of course that's amazing. Of course, if they can't progress to the first team, you want to see some of these players sold for profit to be reintegrated back into the team. And I think they've been a good, it's been a good recruitment drive. You know, some of these players, you know, you look at Akinola, why Huddersfield released him and how they've released him. I'd like to know their thinking, because I'm not going to go as far as to say he was going to make it there, but I can't understand it, because I don't know their academy like that, but I'm pretty sure he weren't the worst player. You know, Muller obviously brought in to probably enhance his development, joining a more reputable club. You know, Adelo, again, complementing our options. SALAH-EDDINE looks like a shrewd addition. He's still eligible for 18s level, and he's someone that is probably, out of all of these names, I don't want to, please don't get hung up on my terminology, but based on the way he plays, the positions he takes up, and just his playing style, he's probably the most Arsenal player, or the player you would look for with Arsenal's academy, and the technical players that have probably come through that Arsene Wenger has tried to install in our academy, and definitely in terms of the Emirates era sort of thing. But I think they've all been good recruits, man, and Dinze's been a good addition at centre-half. They've all started well, they've all adapted well, you know. Some have been unfortunate with injury and things like that. You know, some have started well than others. Some you want to see a bit more personality, or a bit more of their personality and their style and what they're about and their ability, and ultimately why they were brought to this club, really, because nobody struggled, but there's got to have been something that's made these Arsenal coaches and whatnot gone, yeah, I'll have him. So I'm just saying, I want to see a bit of that. I can see Akinola why they took a chance. I can see George Lewis why they took a chance. Muller, I can see why they took a chance. You know, SALAH-EDDINE, I can see why. You know, you're technically good, but I want to see more standout performances by him in particular, because I really have taken a liking to him. Really impressed with Akinola, because he's a bit different to the midfielders we have. I think he breaks down play well and all of these sort of things, and you know, it could go against him that again, I'm not selling him short technically, he can pass the ball, but in comparison, it could go against him once again that he's not as technically gifted or as much of a technical player as the other midfielders. But one thing that I think could help him is that he's a bit different. You know, there's not too many, I'd say Matt Smith, you know, because he's got the perfect blend of them all. I don't really see too many of these midfielders, for as great as they are technically, they're not necessarily the best of ball winners. Like Miguel Aziz, the most improvement he needs to do, obviously there's improvement with his passing. It could be a bit crisper, a bit more consistent, you know, sometimes he forces it and all of these things. But for me, the biggest development Aziz needs to make if he's going to get thrown into the first team is defending. Sometimes he gives away cheap fouls, he's given away cheap penalties as well, you know. These are the things that would let him down, and whether we know he's not going to be a defensive mid, but he's got to improve, you know. Not too many of these midfielders can do what Akinola does, so that could be a benefit. You know, if Partey gets injured, which he is, touch wood, it's not long term, I don't think this 19-year-old is going to be thrown in. But if he trains with the first team, someone might say, all right, cool, see what you bring to the table. I really like Akinola in particular. Like I said, I think George Lewis, Adelo, SALAH-EDDINE, Dinzai, Muller, I think they've all been shrewd additions and good purchases, and time will tell. Hopefully, you know me, I want as many players to progress to the first team as possible, especially because some of these stories have been a bit unique. If that can't be done, hopefully players can be sold on for profit and the academy can keep spinning. Simple as that. On that note, though, I'm going to get out of here. It's always a pleasure. DG.